Hello, and welcome back to that thing we like to call Curless Mania, where we talk all things pop rock and prog. I am so excited. Before we do anything else, I'm really excited to welcome back to the channel Mr. Peter Jones. How are you, Peter?
Thank you, Tom. It's a pleasure to be here. What an honor, and looking forward to it.
Absolutely. We have a lot to talk about. We are talking about Jimi Hendrix. I mean, what bigger guitar hero is there than that? And we're doing the debut Are You Experienced? As Peter, talked about earlier, it's like we're not just doing we're not doing this version of Are You Experienced, this sort of American version, which is like 10 songs. We are doing
Right,
the expanded version, correct?
right. Yep.
Yep. So
Full
yes,
Monties.
well, exactly. So, and this CD, I love the Are You Experienced CD because it has, what does it have, 17 tracks on it, so I love it. But
Yeah.
so what, before we do anything, before we last, I was starting my stuff going out, with this question for everybody, and that is, when was the first time you remember hearing Jimi Hendrix? Do you remember?
I don't know the exact time, but I know it's got to be pretty close to somewhere around release date. Having two older sisters who I've mentioned on a lot of shows, 3 and 6 years older than I am, who are also very avid music lovers and listeners. I'm sure I either heard Purple Haze or Hey Joe or something. And if I didn't hear it on the radio, I certainly heard it not too long after that at a friend's house who had older brothers.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
who
Yep.
were playing it, and it's kind of hard to forget hearing something because it was so different than anything that I had ever heard before or since, honestly. So,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I had very similar experience. I have older sisters as well, and my older sister's boyfriend had smash hits, and I remember him
yeah,
playing this. And like you said, it made an impression immediately. Purple Haze, Foxy Lady, you start
yeah,
hearing those songs right away. Fire, I remember being like, "Oh my God, these songs are great! Like, who is this?"
right.
You know,
Absolutely.
love it. So, anyway, and he made me a cassette. I think I'd asked him. I said, "Hey, can you make me a cassette with those Jimi Hendrix songs on there?"
Yeah. And then, of course, as soon as I got a little bit older and started my drumming career, in grade school and everything, and, listening to Mitch, and it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, I have to pay attention to this guy because there's something good going on here. And it proved to
Yeah.
be very valuable.
Yeah. So would you say, because you're a drummer, would you say Mitch is like a sort of a top-down kind of guy?
Mitch,
What would you say
Mitch,
is his
yeah.
style?
Mitch is one of those guys who in the late 60s, early 70s are bridge players. I
Yeah.
call them bridge players because they bring over that gap between the big band jazz drummers, Art Blakey, Elvin Jones, Max Roach, Buddy Rich, and even from Gene Krupa into what became blues and then into harder rock. They're transition guys. They've got jazz hands, they've got fluidity and
Yep.
speed, but they swing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because they swing, and the British drummers were the best at it, sorry, America, at the time they were,
They
because they
were.
were listening to our blues music that
Mhm.
we'd thrown away and ignored
True.
because we were listening to Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis instead of Buddy Guy and Sonny Boy and Muddy Waters and
Yep.
them.
Yep.
The British were listening to them, and those drummers inherently developed a swing feel. And Mitch is one of the best at it.
Ah,
And all of these songs have his signature all over them.
yep.
So absolutely
Yep. And we'll get
essential,
into this.
essential.
We're getting into the I'm going to skip ahead just for 1 second, and that is when I first heard manic depression. I was like, I gotta learn how to play that. I gotta learn how to play that. Like, how is he doing that? Is
Yeah.
so oh, God. It's like, how is he doing that?
All triplets, all swing feel. It's
Yeah.
just so beautiful.
What a rhythm, what a groove. So yeah. So let's jump in. We're gonna jump in real quick. We got a lot to cover here, so I'm gonna jump
Right.
in fast. So let's just gonna do a really, really fast rundown of Are You Experienced? It was there obviously the debut LP from the Jimi Hendrix Experience, released May 12th, 1967 on Track Records. Recorded October 66 to April 67. So decent length of recording time there. at Delane Leia, CBS, and Olympic, produced by Chaz Chandler, who was the guy that discovered Hendrix, of course, a bass player from the Animals who discovered him in New York. Reached number 2 in the UK. It was released August 23rd in the USA on Reprise, and it got to number 5 in the US Billboard. So it did very well for debut. So, let's jump into it.
Yeah, and the whole history of the recordings and everything in and of itself is a series that we're just not going to be able to get into today from time.
Yeah.
So I will just give this one small little quote here, and it kind of summarizes the entire recording process. Soon after they started their sessions, Chandler asked Hendrix to turn his guitar amplifier down, and an argument ensued. Chandler commented that Jimmy threw a tantrum because I won't let him play guitar loud enough. He was playing a Marshall twin stack, and it was so loud in the studio that it was picking up various rattles and noises. According to Chandler, Hendrix then threatened to leave England, saying, if I can't play as loud as I want, I might as well go back to New York. Well, Chaz had Hendrix's immigration papers and passport in his back pocket, laid them on the table, and said, piss off.
Yeah. Yep.
Hendrix laughed and said, all right, you called my bluff. Let's get back to work.
That's a great story.
So, here we are.
Yep.
Purple Haze, right? It's the tritone, right? It's metal. And how do they get the tritone? It's actually between the guitar and the bass. They're playing the same part, but playing different notes. And between the E and the B flat, you get your tritone. So metal, so people use it as a source of metal. But how much metal it is, I think that's for dispute. Very heavy quarter note in the drums. It's got a great feel. He's basically playing rhythm on the snare drum. It's driving. It's heavy. Right off the bat, I'm just going to say, for me, is Hendrix a great singer? No.
Yeah.
But he's entertaining. And
Right.
he has something that every singer really should have, and he's got soul.
Yes.
And he's got authenticity. So for me, it's never been about his pitch or his diction or any of that kind. I don't even care.
Right.
I don't care. And so in these contexts, it works great. Great bass line playing. Love how he moves to the ride cymbal later on, and it's kind of you get these kind of spoken words in the background as we get to his solo, and we start to discover already all the wide variations of tones that Jimmy can create just in one song. He gets to his solo section, the guitar doesn't sound anything like the intro or the verse or the chorus, and then back they go. So many great drum fills back and forth between, and this is something Mitch also does. He goes between standard time and double time. So if you're dun dun, he's dun dun dun, and then dun dun dun, he'll play double time on top of it, and especially with triplets. That's Mitch.
Yeah, totally.
The great opening track, and like I said, does it define metal? Question mark. You decide.
Yeah.
But it swings like crazy, and it's just a ridiculous song. It's always been great. So.
Great. Oh yeah. Amazing. Amazing. Purple Haze, man. Because my CD starts with Hey Joe, but I think this is
you may have a different one. Okay.
Different. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm using the North American edition with the bonus tracks.
Yeah.
So we've got 17 tracks, but we may be different. So we'll just adjust.
I'll just go in your order. I'm just going to follow your order. So
okay. So you want me to go to the next track, or you got more on Purple Haze there?
No, you covered Purple Haze. I mean, it's just a classic. What else can be?
Okay, let's go to Manic Depression.
All right.
And man, what a killer!
Yeah. Oh my God.
3/4 drives like crazy.
I love it.
Tremendous drum playing from Mitch. It just flows. And as it moves along further, Jimmy gets these nice little tail riffs at the end of each line. And the band is so tight. And again, what I love is that Mitch will give you that triplet feel with triplets. Da da da, then it go da da da, da 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 da. He'll all of a sudden go to eighth note bass, the swing, and you're like, whoa, what was that?
Yes.
Great solo from Jimmy. The backing tracks are, really not too overly complicated. It's all about
Right.
melody, it's about great feel. And when Jimmy does the music, sweet music, and I'm thinking Doug Pinnick from King's X
Oh,
was
totally.
was
Yeah.
listening to this, and that was a huge influence because I hear that all through King's X stuff.
Yep.
And what I love about it is it's so different from Purple Haze. The two tracks are so completely different right off the bat. You
Yeah.
don't have two things that you would confuse for each other on any day whatsoever. So
Yes.
Hendrix staple. So
I mean, unbelievable track. I love Manic Depression. There's some, it's so unique. And it's such, the one thing I was going to say about Purple Haze and Manic Depression, I mean, this is a band. I mean, we're talking about Jimi Hendrix Experience, but man, this trio they could rock. And they were a band. They were doing this live, mostly live in the studio with some overdubs, but it's mostly live.
mm,
And man, I mean, we were talking about this before we started. What a groove. Manic Depression is so great. Love it. Mitch is killing it.
it's been covered a million times.
Yeah. Yeah.
A
When he
million artists.
and he's singing along with the guitar. Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah. It's just so perfect. So
Yeah.
perfect. And I will say too, I want to give credit to Noel Redding because a lot of times he gets a bit slogged. He's doing exactly what the song needs.
Oh
You
yeah.
know,
Oh
he's
yeah.
he's not going to be overtly flashy. He's not going to be in the way. His job is to lay chordal or single note harmonic foundation. That's his job.
Yeah. Yep.
Let Jimmy do everything
Jimmy
else.
do it. Exactly.
And,
Exactly.
and I think from that stone, he played tight with Mitch. But the biggest thing is that Mitch and Jimmy were absolutely in symbiotic lock.
Yeah.
Those two played together like one mind, and that's really what made the experience work.
Yes. Kind of like Bonham and Page a little bit, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Any great drummer with a good guitarist or great guitarist.
Yep.
So, Hey Joe,
Yeah.
uh, by Bill Roberts. This is a total change of direction from the first two songs. And this one is one of the songs that starts to highlight Jimmy's beautiful clean tones. And, everybody will sometimes say, oh, it's the feedback and it's the loud. It's this. Jimmy played clean a lot.
Yeah, he did. He did.
And
Yep.
this is very, very musical. It's tasty. And here's where I think the vocal is really good. And it just builds so nicely. It's got a nice flow to it. We've got the Breakaways, the female backing trio, doing their beautiful backing
Mhm.
vocals on here, which is great. But it's, even within a more, and it's not a ballad per se, but it's still got cool riffs, you
Mhm.
know, da 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 da. It's got these Hey Joe, it's got the great riffs, and I love how it flows. It's just a simple straight top, and this is one of the first really kind of traditional song structures and it just works great. And there's a reason. Again, this is kind of redundant. Why this is a Hendrix staple because it's easy to latch onto. It's easy to digest. It's not offensive to anybody. It's just a great song.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, wasn't it like sort of like a folky kind of song originally or something? It was sort of an acousticy folky. I don't know.
I have never
I don't
heard
know.
any of an original.
Yeah, but he made it his own. There's no question. Hendrix made it his own, and and you're right. There's something about those female vocals and the it's got this sort of like menacing feel to it. Like where you going with that gun? And it just has this sort of vibe throughout the whole song. And he just, oh, it's so good. It's like it was the first single I think they released, right? It was the first. I think it was the first major single. I think.
Yeah, I'd have to look.
I think that was correct, but.
I know Purple Haze was the second single, and there's people who know way more about singles than I do.
Yeah, I think it was. I'm not positive, but I think so. But yeah, what a great track. Love it. Love it. Love
Yeah.
it stuff. Yep.
Lover Confusion.
Oh yeah.
And all of a sudden, we go into a much more psychedelic feel.
Yes.
There's lots of reverb on the vocals. It's very wet.
Yeah. Yes.
And the other thing too is that when you go into the history of the recordings, it's a track here, it's a track there, it's a track at this studio, they redid it again. And so it's challenging to get an album that is recorded in various places in a lot of environments to sound the same from top track to bottom track versus someone who stays in the same studio and works straight through a whole album.
Right.
That's not remotely how this was put together.
No, no.
And so you do get tracks that have different sonic qualities because their environments are different. Everything, the gear's different. Everything's different.
Yep.
And this one kind of feels like you could tell maybe this is somewhere else. And maybe even if it's not, it still sounds that way.
Yep.
This is one of Jimmy's stronger vocal performances. Again, we go back and forth between a snare drum groove and a regular feel. And we get into this beautiful little solo section. And then what do we get? We get some Latin flavor from
Yes.
Mitch. He changes his drums up. And that's just the earwig that we need to kind of take it out of its routine and go, oh, and then he starts picking his fills up and it starts getting a little more frantic. And then there's some really great bass work going on about 3/4 of the way through. And what is really kind of cool is it starts to get thicker, starts to get heavier, a little bit dirtier, and you start to hear how Jimmy's guitar's got a lot of noise and artifact in it, which is kind of cool and raw. I like that it hasn't been so sanitized and cleaned up. I mean, you can hear the snares buzzing on his kit. I mean, all kinds of stuff that
Yeah.
today you'd wipe out.
Right.
And
Right.
to me, that's a travesty.
Yeah.
But it's a deep track. Most people who don't listen to this album wouldn't know this.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
but I think it's great, and we've got four different tracks that are just so completely different than each other. I mean, a wide range of styles.
Already.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
think that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love your description. This is sort of like it's sort of like heavy mid-tempo psychedelia. It's kind of this, it's got this feel to it that's very psychedelic. And it, like you said, his vocal, I just want to reiterate the vocal. It just, I mean, you said he's not a technical singer, but man, he really emotes on this track. I
right.
love it. Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, May This Be Love.
Oh, yeah. Love
To
it.
me, this has got kind of a cream-like feel from, Disraeli Gears era. The tom pattern that kind of creates the
Ginger
feel.
Bakery. Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
got that kind of feel to it. It's slow, and what I put is kind of spacey, moody, whispery,
Hmm.
and very fluid. It's almost water-like, and which is ironic because what's the word you think of the most? Waterfall,
Yeah.
waterfall. And he's got these,
Waterfall.
and he's
Yeah.
got these woo, woo,
Hmm.
with all the reverb kicking off. He's like, wee, these weird studio sounds he's doing. But waterfall, you're like, oh yeah, okay, this is cool.
Yeah.
You're nowhere in the heavy metal world right now, folks.
No.
Nowhere close. So, he's not, does not pigeonhole him as a metal this. He was a wide variety, widely varied artist. Soul, R&B, blues, obviously. He could play heavier and loud, and that's in his catalog. But a lot of times, if you only knew the hits, you wouldn't expect a song this gentle to be in his discography. And
Yeah.
it is. And I think, here's the key to me. It doesn't sound dated,
No. No, not really.
which when you start using terms like psychedelic and you bring up cream and all these things, you'd be like, oh, does it sound dated? Doesn't to me.
No.
And listening to these all these years, and then again as we're doing this, it sounds as fresh as ever. And I think it's another really great song.
Oh, it's so gentle. Like you used, I think you used the word It's gentle. It's also the clean guitar again. Everyone always thinks
Yes.
Hendrix is this distortion to the Marshalls to the max, and then you hear a song like this, you're like, this sounds like a playing through a Fender Twin or something. It's like
Oh, I wrote down, this is the Hendrix clean tone everybody's chasing.
right, right, exactly, exactly.
This is the sound that they're chasing when they do his clean tone.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love and like you said, all those whoop, all those like little like those and they
Yeah.
have tons of reverb on them, and it just I love it. It just it's got such a I love when Hendrix switches gears like this, and he's a huge switch gear, but I love it. I think it's great.
Right.
Yep.
I Don't Live Today.
Oh man.
Ah,
I keep
do
saying that, but
da
every song on this is so good.
do do da da do boop do do da da do do da na 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 na, right?
I live tomorrow. Oh my God.
Oh my God. And what I love is the da da I don't live. Oh man, is it got power.
It
And
does.
again, Mitch is playing in regular slow time and then over the top of it and he's playing double time. And then he plays double time in little patterns and they go back and forth.
Yeah.
And one of the things people need to go back and listen to, and I'm going to real drum geek out here, go back and listen, especially during the solo, listen to Mitch Mitchell's hi-hat foot. He is
Yeah.
kicking all through this at different feels and at different spots, just like the greatest jazz big band drummers. It is so bloody tasty, it's ridiculous. Because if
Right.
you leave that out, it won't feel right. And it's just, oh my God, it's so good. And then you get this pure noise section where it's just dive bomb and just loud and all of a sudden na 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 and back in and and then it just going crazy and he says there ain't no life nowhere and it just goes into mayhem
Yeah.
and you're just like wow what did that must have sounded like live in the studio, right? And it's
Yeah.
just like let's just end that. That's a brilliant song and it really shows off the band's wide range of proficiency and man they can play their rears off and this is just always been one of my favorite Hendrix tracks.
Oh
Killer.
my God. I mean, the end is just so chaotic. It's just like this chaos ensues. And but to your point, this is a power trio, man. They are powerful. How different you go from May This Be Love to this. And it's like
Mhm.
suddenly they're like this really loud, raucous, crazy power trio. And doesn't he say something about you'll never hear surf music again? Is that on this track?
There may be something at the end. He's like
That
he uses the word experience, and
yeah.
I don't know if he actually says "Are you experienced" or something, but it's just all in the dive bombing noise at the end.
Yeah, you can hear like he's talking like in the background or so. Yeah, exactly. So it's just such a chaos, but I love it. It's great, beautiful chaos.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a master class from Mitch on drums too.
and
Just
imagine, yeah, totally. Mitch is just killing. Again, I hate to keep repeating myself, but Mitch Mitchell is just killing it on this whole album, and this track is particularly. I love that. Love the drums. Those do do da, da, do do just like
yeah,
oh my god. Uh,
sound killer.
Yeah, they sound so good. Exactly. And
Yeah,
this is 67 people. I mean, this is 66 and 67. This is
yeah,
early.
yeah.
So it's really, I mean, it's pretty amazing for the time. And oof, what a track. I mean, I'm losing, I had another thought, but I lost it. But it's great, great track. Fantastic.
The Wind Cries Mary, another gentle. And I just said, this is just beautiful. And I said, that Strat sound is just glorious,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know? And you can sing right along with it. The melody is exceptional. It's so catchy, just as much as any pop song of the day.
Hmm.
Um, and it's just got such a feel that sits so deep in the pocket and it just overall just is so settling. And sometimes it's hard to do with few instruments in a slower tempo, is to just get it all to gel, and it gels so beautifully. Jimmy's solo is so tasty on this. And again, he varies his tone just enough to differentiate from the verses, and it really stands out. And I said it's so far ahead of its time
Yeah.
because it's just nobody was doing stuff like this. And it was just so well done. And, you know, I've got nothing else to say on this one. It's just a great track. And, okay, I'll leave it at
Yeah.
that.
No, I love how poetic the lyrics are. I mean, they're very,
Yeah,
this is sort of, Hendrix loved Bob Dylan and he loved Blonde on Blonde and he loved the wordplay, the creative wordplay. And on this track, he seems like he's kind of going for that a little bit.
right.
You know, and after all the jacks are in their boxes, and it's I love the lyrics as well.
Yeah, every once in a while, a lyric like his will stick out like that. And it's easy to not focus on his lyrics because there's so much other stuff that's interesting to listen to.
Mhm.
And, I'm the first guy to admit I'm kind of basically a lyrics last guy. But
Mhm.
when you notice them and you're like, wow, that's just kind of cool. And maybe if anything, the only thing that may sound dated at times is maybe a lyric here or there that will reference, more kind of the era of the psychedelia and the hallucinations and the drugs and that kind of thing. But it works in its context, so that always makes it okay.
All right. So what do we
I'm
got
going
next?
to let's go to fire.
What's that?
Fire.
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 Let me stand next to your fire.
Maybe one of the most covered of his discography. Obviously, it's even in Wayne's World, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Is it, and every musician who's ever been in a cover band playing rock music's played Fire.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh yeah.
everybody, everybody.
Yeah.
You know, and if you go back and listen to it as an analyzation, you really notice that Jimmy's guitar really isn't that far up in the mix. The bass and especially drums, and I put this is all about Mitch.
Yeah. Oh
The
yeah.
drums are way up front
Yep.
and until the solo section. And then move over, let Jimmy take over, and he does. And then it's about him. And but I was talking about Noel before. This is where Noel really shined. The bass playing on this is insanely cool.
Do, 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 do.
It's just
Sounds like a
vintage.
stack span
Yeah.
or something. Yeah.
Just as good as anything John Paul or Entwistle or anybody was doing behind a great classic song,
Yeah.
and it's powerful, it's intense, and his solos at the end just soar.
Oh, they do.
Just
Yeah, the
holding
solos. Yeah.
holding these beautiful melodic lines that he's doing, and Mitch is just going crazy. It's just
Yeah.
fills all over the place, and I mean, you know.
Mitch earns his paycheck on this song alone.
Yeah, and what's so cool is that the riff is a broken riff, which leaves so much room for Mitch to play underneath, and it's his rhythmic syncopations and everything that go back and forth between his kick and his snare drum that are just so tasty.
Yeah. Yep.
And like, yeah,
When I
okay,
was younger, I heard this track. This made such a huge impression on me because that whole, I mean, just that those drum breaks. You're like, oh my
yeah,
God. I just thought I remember just my ears just perking up for those drums. I just thought, who is playing drums on this? This is so great.
yeah,
And the way and to your point on Fire, I remember a buddy of mine, he wasn't a huge music guy, but he did like Hendrix, and he used to always joke around about, like you were talking about, the way he sings, and he puts in all these asides and these heys, and like on this track it's like all over the place where he's doing, like you said, the hey, move over, let Jimmy take over. Yeah, you know
right,
what I'm talking about? Yeah. And he's doing all these, like,
right.
it's great. He's got so much personality.
Yeah, it does, and it's got, and all of these tracks have such a live feel to them. And, as we probably can tell, most of these are done live for a number of reasons. One, limits in number of tracks that are available. That's the first thing. But maybe the more important overlier is money.
Yes,
Way
yes.
easier to record a song as a group than it does to do the drums and then add the bass and then add the guitar and then add the vocals. If you can do it all live, do it live because you just saved us a crap load of money.
Yes.
Now, the irony is that if you read the stories, the number of takes they've done on some of these songs completely throws that theory out the window. If you do
Yes.
something 50 times,
Hmm.
you know, I'm sure that's not very cost effective. Or the number of times they've changed studios and went, oh, wait, the sound is better here. We didn't like the last one. Let's just redo it.
Yes.
you
Yes.
know? And
Yeah.
so you're like, okay, but they still have a live feel.
Yeah, they do.
Still
They do.
playing live, and that allows multiple things. Like I said, I mean, it's tighter, but it allows the musician to hear what the musicians are playing and allows them to react. And that's what creates the magic, is that when one person hears what somebody else is doing, supplements it, augments it. And we talked about that with Deep Purple. They're masters at it.
Yeah. Yep.
That when you're playing live, somebody will do a lick or a motif rhythmically, and then you can latch onto it, especially if you're creative and listening like Mitch was, and Jimmy
Mhm.
vice versa. That, oh, now there's something that wouldn't have been there if he was just playing by himself.
Yes. Yes. Right. Yeah.
That's where the magic happens.
Absolutely. Yep.
That's the stuff that makes legends. So
No, absolutely. No, there's no question that there's this I don't know how to describe it. There's just that magic that's happening between the three of them, really. It's and Chaz, this is what I was going to say is that Chaz was, he was pushing them to go faster. Let's go, let's go, let's go. He'd already had a lot of money invested in this. And
right.
he was like, "Hey man, we got." And Jimmy was a perfectionist, as we know, so he would, it was like this constant, between the
Right.
two of them. So yeah, yep. So anyway, great fire, amazing, amazing track. Love that to death.
Yeah.
Yep.
Third stone from the sun.
Yeah. Oh my God. I keep saying this about every track. Oh my God. It's just this whole record is not, it's nonstop.
What I wrote on the top of my notes here, Tom, was masterpiece.
Yeah. Yeah.
Psychedelic jazz, moody rock epic.
Yes. Yes.
Every lick in his history is in this song. Everything he is known for, his trademarks, if you will, are all in and out of this one track at a various moment or another.
Yep.
The main melody, his moving octaves, wow, 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 just those roaming octaves.
So,
And,
so killer.
and then they change and break it down into the gentle arpeggiating and then into a totally different feel. And then the distortion kicks in and you're like, what?
What is happening right now?
And you get these crazy wind effects, similar to things you'd hear on Saucer Full of Secrets.
Yep.
You're like, oh, and you're like, okay. And then Mitch obviously is going nuts. And it's a beautiful link between almost jazz like avant-garde and rock psychedelia, all kind of intermingling at some point
Yeah.
during the track. And this is by far my favorite song on the album. Um, that you can instantly, for me anyways, imagine being in some dark club somewhere with them ripping through this, just kind of just going,
Yeah. Yeah. Jaw on the floor.
what are we seeing?
Yeah.
You know? And the fact reiterates what I was saying before. You have to be able to play live as a group and a collective to pull off something like this.
Yeah.
You don't do this individually. It just would sound right.
Right.
And the fact that he could just move through and I mean, first of all, just to even compose something like this, genius.
Yes. Right.
But it is just, it's got so much color and so much shade and just paints so many pictures. And when, everybody kind of jokes, so you say, oh, I saw colors when I was listening to, you know, well, that's kind of a compliment because to me, it means you are out of your own headspace. You're out seeing or feeling or describing it as a kaleidoscope of this and styles and moods and feels and reds and blues and yellows and oranges, and to me, that's when music really does something great. When it takes you out of your own headspace and you start to feel something well up and above it. I just think it's a perfect track.
Yeah.
And,
Yep.
if there's just one, I would have to. It's not commercial on any level whatsoever.
Right. Right.
This is not something most people would just put on to kind of go, let me sit back and enjoy.
Yeah.
I think especially musicians really get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They just go, oh,
Okay.
okay, you're at a different level than the rest of us.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I never thought of the song being like, you're right. It's like three different sections.
Yeah,
I never really thought of it that way, but it blends so seamlessly that it works so well. But it's like three different things, and man, and don't they have like slowed down vocals going on too? Like
yeah,
there's
like kind of like the spoken word thing.
yeah,
And then like by the time they get between that second and third section, Mitch is almost full on jazz. He's
right,
just
right,
swinging underneath it, and you're like, what the hell? Again, his hi-hat with his foot kicking away, and you're like, that's way different than where we started.
yes,
But
yes.
it's just seamless.
It's seamless. It's seamless.
And
That's the live band at play. Like you said, that's the Deep Purple thing we talked about. That's the magic. And it's hard to just like, we talk about music and it's funny, you were mentioning colors, right? We talk about music a lot, but sometimes it's hard to find adjectives, right? You're just
right,
like, I don't know what to say because it just takes me to a certain place in my head and I don't really know how to describe that. This is kind of one of those tracks. And you mentioned Pink Floyd. He apparently Hendrix was an admirer of Pink Floyd because he liked how adventurous they were, and I think you're right. I think he was sort of influenced by them a little bit. And I think that this track is very Jimmy. It's very, very Jimmy. Like you can tell and feel like Jimmy like wanted to do this track. And this is almost like a little bit of a hint of what's to come, right? Like
mhm,
it's not as poppy or this feels more like, oh, this is kind of where he wants to go a little,
right.
you know.
Yeah. And it's how do you put this next to Hey Joe?
Yeah. Yeah.
The Wind Cries Mary. I
Right.
mean, the range is insane.
Yeah. It's
It's
cool.
man, what a spectrum.
Loved, yeah. What a track! What I love it. It's like again, these are deep tracks we're talking about, and they just blow our minds. So there we go.
Yeah.
So here we go.
Foxy Lady
Oh, I mean,
coming to get you.
yeah,
Yeah, I put maybe the most famous feedback intro of any song ever, right?
yeah, right. Yep,
You know it's coming.
yep,
As
yep,
soon as you hear it, and then in they go.
yep.
Heavy, plotting, powerful. Um, I'm not going to, and anybody want to slaughter me, go ahead. I'm not going to disrespect this by calling this metal. Sorry, it's not.
Hmm.
It's just heavy, hard rock. It's
Yeah,
just what it is. The sure the guitar chords and everything are kind of doomy. Um, but once you get to the kind of the chorus section, I want to take you home. I would do you no harm. I want, it's that it's cool. It's melodic. You can sing it, and then he just kind of unleashes, but it's heavy because of Mitch. It's heavy because of Mitch and Noel. And Ozzy's always talked about, yes, Tony Iommi is, and I'm not going to mitigate him on any level whatsoever, but he said Sabbath's heaviness came from Geezer and Bill.
right, right.
And this is where a different rhythm section or different kinds of players, this may not have been nearly as impactful. It's the way Mitch is playing, and he's just thundering underneath there. And he's not playing traditional kind of straightforward rock stuff. It's just he's breaking it up, he's playing patterns, you know, and he's just accentuating the riff perfectly. and it's, and I said it's not a great vocal, but it is full of energy and feel and attitude.
It's got the attitude again. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got this in spades. It's
Yeah. I mean, it's just something as simple as there's a couple of like really hooky, super hooky things going on in this track. One of them is the fox. I mean, just doing
yeah,
that sort of that's such a hook, that whisper, that happens on like right in rhythmic, that sort of rhythmic whispering going on. And then he does,
right.
the whole you got to be all mine, boom, and just stops. Foxy lady, wah, 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 wah. I mean, it's like, oh my God, that's just
And
so,
even the solo's really melodic.
yeah. Yeah. So it just still gets me every time when that thing stops and he does that. Wah, wah, I just love it every time. I love it. Never gets old for me.
It's an amazing track.
Yeah.
Are you experienced?
Oof. Okay.
This is extreme psychedelic,
Yeah.
and there's so many amazing little guitar moments all through this. A lot of multi tracks on this. He's got a lot of parts going on, and you get a marching snare beat from Mitch.
Yeah.
You're like, where does that come from? And but you think about it, that's kind of maybe one of the late 60s signatures,
Right.
you know? Kind of if you think about White Rabbit, and the bolero thing, dun 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 dun
Yeah.
dun. It's a
Yep.
marchy kind of drony Ravel bolero kind of thing,
Yep.
rhythmically a little bit different, but this has kind of got Mitch underneath. But then when you get to that, as soon as you get to that, but first. It's just like it's just like nothing makes any sense. It's like almost all time suspends
Yes.
until all of it says, "Well, I back into it." No, no, no. It's just he's just all over the place, and you're just like the solo was like unlike anything ever heard before,
Yes.
and you can literally feel the power of the band behind him.
Hmm.
It comes through the track, and it sounds like heaven and flying, everything all at the same time. It's just you're not on the earth. You're somewhere ethereal. You're just not restrained by gravity or any other conventions. It's just exists. It's in
Floating.
the ether.
Yep.
Floats.
Yep. No, I'm with you. It's floating. You're floating in space somewhere, and you imagine we take this for granted. The thing that hits me when you're talking about this is like, imagine hearing this in '67. I mean, you'd be like just blown. I
Yeah.
mean, we take it for granted, but imagine this was so new in '67. This was like people are going, "How is he doing this? How is he making this noise? How is this happening?"
Yeah.
You know?
And you say, well, what other contemporaries were there? Well, okay, Cream was doing White Room.
Right.
That's not this.
No. Nope.
Not even close.
No.
And yes, they had deep inner tracks, but they never went to this level of psychedelic.
No.
And any other bands that did do some psychedelia were never remotely this heavy.
Right. Exactly.
So they didn't do it. Floyd was certainly working and dancing in that theater.
But they weren't that heavy, to your point. They weren't as heavy.
They could go back and forth, astronomy, domain, and every kind of stuff would be like, no, 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 no. You'd be like, whoa, you
Yeah.
know, and you'd be like, so I think between Floyd and Jimmy were really kind of defining that whole psychedelic era.
Absolutely.
One driven by a guitar, one driven by an ensemble, because
Yes.
Floyd was a collective,
Right.
you know.
Yep.
and more vocally driven as well. I think first
Yeah.
with Sid and then moving forward.
Right.
So, I mean, it's just and the best. All you got to do is say the line at the end. not necessarily stoned, but beautiful. I mean, it's perfect.
It's so perfect. Who knows what it means, but it's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never been stoned. I've never been high or drunk, so I mean, I don't know what that feels like.
Right.
But I've left the ground a lot listening to some really cool stuff, and this is one of them.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So not necessarily stoned, but beautiful. That's
Yeah. All right, Jimmy, whatever you say, man.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. No, I couldn't agree with you more. This was just so revolutionary at the time too. Just so and he his guitar effects. He was experimenting with guitar effects that were new at the time as well.
Oh, he was totally fearless
Yeah.
in so I could try this, try that, try
Do it.
this, see what it
Yeah.
does. Yeah. He has stuff in his head, it was there.
Hmm.
The real skill for a musician like that is to find a vehicle that allows it to come out.
Hmm.
That's the challenge. There's
Right.
all kinds of people with great things and thoughts and creations in their head. But if they can't find that vehicle, if they can't find the medium, if they can't find a way to get it out, it's just got to be terrorizing.
Hmm.
And he's like, "Oh wait, I hear this." And he said, "Well, some would be content and say, okay, you're playing with this and that sound. Do the whole album with that guitar and that amp and that setting." None of these tracks sound the same.
No.
Every one of them has a different guitar sound.
Yep.
All of them.
They're all so different. Yeah. They're
The
so.
distortion that's on Foxy Lady isn't the same distortion that's on Purple Haze.
Yep.
They're totally different.
Oh God, absolutely. Yeah.
And yet they are all his signature. How
Right.
do you
How is
how
that?
do you do that?
How is that possible? Uh,
I mean, for the most part, and again, I don't want to make this sound disparaging, Eddie Van Halen had a sound. It did
right.
change from album to album. I get that. But you could pick the things out and say these are the Eddie Van Halen things. Jimmy's is this big. The clean and then the tone, but the clean with flange. Oh wait, the clean with tremolo. Oh wait, the distorted with a little bit of reverb. And I mean, it's just what is he using? The fuzz face? No, now he's just overdriving his amps. No, he's using the
Right.
wah. Now he's added this, and you're like, oh my god, he's all over the place.
Yep. Yep. And
Just
wasn't there a guy working with him who like created pedals and he was like working with Jimmy and giving him new stuff and
I don't know.
found out like Rod or
I
somebody or
know. Yeah, I
oh,
know there's a endless amount of YouTube pages where people pursue
yeah.
the Jimmy thing. I mean, all the way from Joe Bonamassa to, you know, back back room guys.
Right.
It's in his fingers.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. No, you're right.
It's in his
Absolutely.
fingers, but it's in his head. And here's a guy who I understand he was ambidextrous.
He could put his thumb
Um,
like all the way across the fret, which is really hard to do.
and they made left-handed guitars after a while, but he chose
Yeah.
take
Yeah.
a right-handed one and turn it over.
Yeah.
That's what he wanted to do. And
Yeah.
that's what worked for him. He liked having the bar on top.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
it's
He probably got used to it after a while, but
a creativity that's just off the charts.
unbelievable. Unbelievable. So is that all the tracks?
Those are all the regular
All the
tracks.
regular tracks.
We've got
Yes.
the bonus
All
tracks
the
now.
B-sides or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and that in of itself for the US release, which is different than the UK release. The songs are different, everything's different. So when we get the reissue, we start bringing in all of these other tracks that we're missing. And the first one is Stone Free.
Ooh, God,
Oh,
what a what
awesome. Love this track.
yes.
The groove from Mitch.
Yes.
The
Ding, 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 ding. Yeah.
rhythm is so tight and succinct, and they are locked in like a machine.
Yes.
And I understand this was the first track that the Experience wrote together.
Yes, it was.
And I'm like, oh, wow. And Jimmy's vocals work great. He's in his lower range every day, every week. And it's just it just grooves. That lick has been copied a gazillion times by every guitarist under the sun.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then, and that's why Mitch opens it up, and and then the riff during the chorus. Oh, and
It's
then they
so
get
awesome.
that beautiful break. Got to get away. Let it hang.
Turn me loose, baby.
And go back to it.
Yep. Yeah.
Solo is ridiculous.
Yep.
It's just oh, one of my absolute favorite
Solo's
tracks.
ridiculous on this. Yeah.
Oh, just I could go on all day about that one. That was just
I'm with you. That's a powerful track, and that's no one could do that song but Jimmy. I mean, no one can do that with the experience. It's just a
yeah. I think Clapton did a version of it
did he?
on a Jimi Hendrix tribute record.
Okay.
I think Clapton did it.
All right. All right.
Um, it sounds like Eric.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, but this is a fully formed, you know, we're saying these are not like tracks that were just left around. They just weren't on the US version. These are real legitimate tracks,
Yeah.
because I believe this was on Smash Hits.
Yes, it
Uh,
was. It
yeah,
was. Yeah.
it may even open it if I can really remember.
Right.
It may have opened the album.
It was definitely on greatest hits for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh my God, is this great?
Oh my, yeah. When he does that, it gives me chills every time when he does the turn me loose, baby. I just like, oh, it's just they just take off, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and they're just ripping it up.
killing it, killing
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
51st anniversary.
yeah.
This is a great, great track. Great shuffle to open up the for 50 years they've been married. Oh, oh.
Yeah.
And then they get to this break section. It's one of the better melodies and the vocal performances he's done. I think it's great. And then they get this really cool 10 years. And then for 3 years, they've been married. And all of a sudden, Mitch goes to double time Latin. And then they go back
He
to
does
the
that so
original
well.
feel.
Yeah.
And this is one of a really standout. And these bonus tracks could make a whole different album. You add two or three more tracks, and it's a standalone on its own that easily competes with anything that he's done.
Yeah.
And this track is so cool. It's got the most lyrics. It's a lot of verses, a lot of
Yeah.
choruses,
Yeah.
and I think this is
I, lo-
it's just a really 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 great track. It's so catchy,
mhm.
but it's just got such a really cool feel.
I love when he says it's a theme that he comes back to a lot about not wanting to be tied down or whatever. And he says something like, "Oh, here," because he does the whole verse about they've been married 50 years and they're gonna
Right?
51 and blah blah blah. And then he goes, "Now here's the other side of things," or whatever, or something like that. Or he talks about the other, like when things don't go well. It's fun.
Oh yeah.
You know,
He says, "So you
like
want
that.
to be married? Oh, baby, try and put me on a chain. Ain't that some shame? You
Right.
must be losing your weak little mind. I ain't ready yet, baby. I ain't ready. I'm gonna change my mind." He's like, "Whoa, wait a second. What am I getting into here?
Exactly.
What
Yeah.
happened to me?"
Great.
Yeah, it's just a perfect track. Just really well done.
Yeah.
Highway Child.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah, and this one, is it's got the it's spoken, the verse. Yeah, his guitar slinging around his back, dusty boots in his Cadillac. He's just kind of talking. You get a cool kind of driving quarter note pattern from Mitch, and then they go into the double time. They get to the breaks again. The solo section is very jazz-like phrasing from Jimmy during his solo. And what I mean by that is that he repeats his motif several times before he moves to the next riff. And that's a jazz player's staple. They'll hit a motif, they'll play it again, they'll play it again, and then they'll advance from it and move on. A lot of rock players have a tendency to just to play the riff once and flow on to something else. The really good soloists know how to use that riff both melodically and then the rhythmic part of it to create a tension, and then you release it to something else, which is very sonically pleasing.
Right.
Uh, I love the pre-choruses. There's great fills on the way out from Mitch. It's just kind of a it's just got kind of a
Straight ahead. It's like very,
yeah,
yeah.
it's nothing overtly flashy. Again, there's not a lot of distortion in this.
No,
It's
no.
it's it's clearly going to be loud, but loud and distortion aren't the same thing. I
Hmm.
mean, you can have loud without, and you can have loud with. Um, but I think he definitely had much more aggressive distortions and things on later records. Um, at least so far through on this record. But great vocal, great melody, fun lyrics. Uh, Nobody now you'd probably call him a tramp, but I know he's a little deeper than that. He's a highway child. And of course, we can get into the argument, child or child, is it E, is it D?
Right. Right.
Voodoo child. I mean,
Yeah.
stories behind that,
Yeah.
but it's because you would think it's voodoo child. I mean, highway child. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No, he's a child.
Yeah.
Child. Because that's kind of cooler.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah.
So
And is he talking about himself on this song? You kind of wonder.
now some people say he had a girl back home who messed around and did him pretty wrong. And they kind of hurt him bad. Kind of made me feel pretty sad.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Now I don't know, this may be a complete stretch, but that's kind of Dylan like.
Yes. Yes.
It's simple. I'm not saying it's dumbed down. I'm not saying it's not intellectual.
Right.
Sometimes Dylan had the perfect ability to he could give you a lyric that said the guy's walking across the street to a store and he would make it work. He
Hmm.
is walking, there he was down the street, and you'd be like, okay,
Yeah. Yep.
it's very direct. It's not rhyming to be crazy or anything. It's just, I have something to say.
Yep.
Here it is. And you're
Go.
like, yeah, that works. That works okay for me.
All right. How about Remember? What do you think of that one? Is that next?
We can do that one, and then we'll do Can You See Me?
Can you see me? Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, we'll do Remember.
yeah. Okay.
Medium
I
tempo.
love Remember. I love Remember.
Yeah, more snare drum. It's like the only thing you get from Mitch. It's all about the vocals for me on this one.
Hmm.
Very minimal backing tracks, bass and drums, and it's all about how he's delivering the line and the sentiment of it. And like some of the other bonus tracks that we've talked about, it's very straightforward, top to bottom,
Very straightforward. Yeah. Yep.
verse, chorus. Um, it sounds very different than everything else. Broken Record, right?
Yep. Yep.
And not a lot of fireworks.
No, there's really not.
Yeah,
It's pretty understated, actually.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It just shows that it wasn't all about Flash. And you say, oh well, look at him live. Well, live is a different animal.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
he's not going to play this kind of song live.
Yeah.
It's not what he was doing and what he was trying to deliver. But in
Hmm.
the studio, you could say, I've got unlimited creativity options, and these are the things that were in his head. And I do think that he comes from a song first mentality
He does. He does. Yes.
that I'm not just writing something to give me a vehicle so I can play a lot of guitar.
Right. That's a great point. That's a great point.
He's got a song because he has something he wants to say. And then how can I put a guitar in it? It would be totally inappropriate to do something as gentle and as basically conservative as this and then put some crazy screaming guitar solo in it. It'd be
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Wouldn't fit. So he stays true to the stylistic approach of the composition he wants to do. And to me, that's art. That's art first. That's
Yep.
yeah, I'm
Song
gonna
first.
this
Yep.
is the song. What do I need to serve the song? Here it is.
Absolutely.
I think that's awesome.
Yep. Can you see me?
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nah.
We
Tight
can't help it.
unison
We
there.
can't help it, people. Sorry, we can't help
Oh
it.
yeah, and it's probably getting blocked out by our settings, and we're moving our mouths and they can't even tell what we're doing.
Yep.
This one has more of a throwback to the main tracks that are on this record. This feels like it's from the sessions. It feels like it's from the era. It's just got that right kind of vibe. And when he kicks into his solo, I just put what a sound. Ugh,
Yes. Yeah.
ugh. Can you see me? It's just, and I love how it ends.
You can't see me. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're like badass.
Yeah. Total badass.
Just, what? It's none of these really songs are long. Can you see me is at 2:30. Highway Child was 3:30. That's there's some 3 minute, 3.5 minutes. And obviously, other than Third Stone, which was almost six and a half, over 6.5.
Right.
These
Right.
are 2.5, 3 minute,
Short songs. Yeah. Yeah.
but they get a lot in those 3 minutes.
Oh, for sure. They pack a
There's a
lot.
lot there. You know, it's when he sings the "Can you see me, baby? Please don't leave." Yeah, if you can see me doing that, you can see me in the future of 1,000 years.
Right.
Okay, you gonna write any books with stuff like that? Probably not. But it
Right.
works great for a song because it's all about the feel. It's all about the attitude. It's all about the collection. I think you do yourself a disservice, to which I just did, to single out a lyric and pull it out of the context of the song with its instrumentation and everything else that goes along with it and go, how does it hold up? Now, people do that. You can take Neil Peart's lyrics and pull them out and go, okay, look, this stands. If it was never with any music at all, you'd say this is really freaking intelligent and thoughtful
Mhm.
and, provoking and that kind of thing. Sometimes Jimmy's don't work that way.
Yeah. Yep.
So don't take them out. So I punish myself for doing that. So, you know, it's cool. It just works and it's all about the feel. It's all about what it makes you feel like. And Can You See Me nails it like every other song on the record.
You can see me doing that. You can, what is it? See a freight train coming from 1,000 miles.
Thousand. Yeah.
Man. And I
If
think,
you can hear me doing that, you can hear a freight train coming from 1,000 miles. Da, da, da. And then he
uh,
goes into a solo and just
solo. Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's I if I'm I God, viewers, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I could swear that that was also on Smash Hits. Can you see me was on Smash?
was, yeah. Because
Yeah,
I think I may have had smash hits at one point.
yeah,
Because it's kind of like got the cowboy images on the back, right?
yes, yes, yes,
Like
exactly.
wearing hats and
Yep, on horses and yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's why I knew that song because I Smash Hits was the first thing I owned and I think it was on that. So but yeah, I love Can You See Me? It's a like you said, it's just powerful. It's just a real quick like in and out punch and
Yeah.
gone, you know.
Doesn't overstay its welcome, puts in exactly what it needs and nothing more.
Yep. Yep. So yeah.
Then we finish. There's a red house over yonder.
Oh my God.
And what do we have? The really only pure traditional 12 bar blues.
Yes. And boy, is it great.
Oh my God, it stands out like crazy.
Yeah. I mean,
And they
man.
say, oh, Jimmy's blues influenced. Yes, he is blues influenced. Yes.
Yep.
But his songs previously are not blues structured.
No, not at all.
No, they're more pop song structured.
Right.
This, there's no mistaking whatsoever. He used to play this he called it California Night with Curtis Knight and those the Squares.
Squires, yeah. Yep.
Liars. Can't read my own writing. Thank you for correcting me.
Yep.
Before the Experience, and it's kind of influenced and maybe borrowed from Traveling to California by Albert King,
Okay.
1961.
Okay. Okay.
Well, this I put this is pure classic 12 bar blues. They absolutely crushed this. What a tone. And this track influenced every guitarist after this came out.
Yeah.
And you listen to this, listen to his solo playing, his riffs, his phrasing, and now go back and listen to Texas Flood
Yep.
and listen to Couldn't Stand the Weather and
Yep.
listen to Soul, and now you get it.
Yes. SRV was a Hendrix disciple, no question.
Now you get it.
Yep. Yep.
Was he purely Jimmy? No, but Jimmy wasn't purely Jimmy either.
Right.
Jimmy loved B.B. King. Jimmy loved Albert King. Jimmy
It.
loved Muddy Waters. Jimmy loved a lot of people,
Yep.
right? And so, like we talked about with the jazz players picking up because they were listening to, and maybe their parents were all listening to big band jazz,
Hmm.
you know, if they're listening to Jimmy, they're getting Albert King. They're getting B.B. King. They're getting these guys without even knowing they're getting it if they haven't discovered those individual players yet, because it's infused in Jimmy's playing.
Yeah.
So when you start to break it down and go back and listen to Albert King, you go, oh,
Oh,
okay. Go listen to Born Under a Bad Sign by
yeah.
Albert King,
Yep.
which is one of the great albums of all time.
Some record.
And you go, oh, maybe that's where Jimmy got that part.
Yep. Yep.
Go listen to Buddy Guy. We were talking about him before the show.
You were.
Okay.
Yep.
Buddy was a big influence on Jimmy.
Right. He was absolutely.
And so we've got this, and it just automatically feels so different than everything else that's on the record because it's a style that we're familiar with, because we certainly got this with Cream. We certainly got this with other blues artists before Jimmy. We're like, oh, okay. We recognize the structure. We recognize the 1-4-5. We recognize how that works. And it's just, you just kind of go, you sit back and go, let me just listen to this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
The vocal that kind of just belies time signatures. It's really not in time.
No, it's not.
Kind of just flows over the bar lines, but there's that underneath do 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 that you just go, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. And what a way to end with something so completely comforting.
Yes. It's like a comfort blanket. Yeah.
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 I mean, just the intro riff itself. The you're like, oh,
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
and
It's
you're
just,
like, there it is.
yeah.
And
It's
you're
just
like,
like
oh.
effortless. It's like it's pure class. It's effortless.
And instantly there is an authenticity to them playing it that you go, okay,
Yep.
you can play it.
Know what they're doing.
Yep. You own it. You know it. You respect it.
Yep.
Not just a blues tune to be a blues tune, because we know there's lots of bands who do that kind of crap.
Those, yeah.
We won't name names.
Right.
But you're just like, okay. So he's got, and that's why I said this one influenced like crazy, because all the blues guys that came after, and they weren't necessarily blues guys by product or presentation,
Mhm.
but you get the elements of Satriani or Vai or John Mayer or Eric Johnson, and you just go on and on and on and on and on, or Brian May or Nuno or any of these guys, and go back to Hendrix, and they're like, "Oh, I heard Red House.
Yeah. Yeah.
I heard Red House,"
All of them say it. Yeah.
and you're like, okay, because the riffs and the playing is in this is it's a whole homage to his skill. I mean, he gets in the middle of this solo, and it's just stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
It
You
just
know, you can tell it's just flowing out of him. Yeah.
no end in sight.
Yeah.
He could just
He could go
go
all night.
all day, all day.
So true. It's like that's the feeling you get on this track for sure. You just
Oh,
feel like he could just riff all day on this if he wanted.
it just feels so perfect
Yeah.
at the end of this, and all five of these tracks are such a shame that they were not on the US version, because
So high quality. So
oh,
high quality.
these
Yeah.
are just exceptional tracks.
Yeah.
So,
So yeah, there you go, people. I mean, I don't know what else we can say about this record. Obviously, we're switching gears. We're not doing a battle. We just talked about our experience
right.
and the bonus tracks, which is it's almost like a double album. I mean, it's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, 17 tracks is a big piece of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we would have gone for 2 hours if we tried to do Electric Ladyland. So obviously we just stayed with this one record, but we'll be back to do Electric Ladyland. That's going to happen later. Um, but uh, but that I mean, is there anything else you wanted to say, Peter, before we wrap it up?
The next album, Access Bold as Love, is different than this, and Electric Ladyland is different than those two, and way different than Are You Experienced? And
Yeah.
then, of course, he's in the Band of Gypsies, which is a complete right turn.
And that's a great place to stop right there because we're gonna do those records. That we'll just because his career is worth talking about every record. So if you're into it, Peter, we're gonna do every record.
I'm right along with you.
Do it. So if you're still with us, we appreciate you. Thank you so much. Go listen to Jimi Hendrix, go listen to Are You Experience with the bonus tracks, and let us know what you think about this record. Give us a comment down below. I always have to say, give us a like and subscribe. Subscribing really helps the channel. I appreciate it. If you could hit that button, doesn't take 2 seconds to do that, and it really helps the channel. Makes me want to do more videos like this. So Peter, thank you so much. Really much
Sure.
appreciated.
Nope, my pleasure. Great to be here.
You're Jimmy, and it's just always fun to talk to you about these artists. So thanks again, everybody, and we'll see you next time on Curless Mania. See ya.